My name's Vance. I wasn't planning on sharing this story, but I think it's one that might help someone out there, especially if you've ever found yourself falling in love overseas. This didn't happen last year. It happened a while back, but I still remember it clearly. Like it just happened last week. Not because it was romantic or exciting, though it was for a while, but because of how much it ended up costing me. Not just money, but something more important. See, I didn't go to Thailand chasing girls or some fantasy. Honestly, I just walked into a travel agency back home one afternoon and asked where I could go for a couple of weeks. The lady behind the counter handed me a brochure with a beach on the front, smiled, and said, Thailand. And that's how it all started. 15 years ago, I had a good job. No wife, no kids, and a bit of money saved. Nothing crazy, just enough to buy a small house if I wanted to, but I didn't really know what I wanted back then. I just knew I was tired. Tired of routines, of gray skies, of the same pubs with the same people telling the same stories. So I booked a 2-week ticket to Thailand. No real plans, just a break. Something different. I landed in Bangkok, and I'll never forget that first blast of heat and noise as the airport doors opened. It hit me like a wave. The smell of street food, car exhaust, and something sweet I still can't name. It was chaotic, but I liked it. I stayed near Khao San Road the first few nights, then made my way down to Pattaya. I figured if I was going to explore Thailand, I might as well see the beach too. Pattaya was something else entirely. Neon signs, music coming from every direction, people from all over the world walking around like they didn't have a care in the world. It was the first time in years I didn't feel like I was falling behind. Everywhere I went, I met guys from back home. Aussies, Brits, Americans, all saying the same thing. Why would I ever go back? These weren't your classic gap year kids. These were regular guys like me, mid-30s set to late 40s, some retired, some working online, some just there. I started thinking, what am I going back to? Cold weather and bills. After a week, I walked into a little internet cafe and paid to change my return ticket, extended it to a full month. I was still telling myself I'd go home eventually, but something inside me already knew I wasn't going back. At least, not the same person who got on that plane. There was something about Thailand. It wasn't just the food or the weather, it was how the place made you feel. Free. Unburdened. Like maybe, for once you could actually live instead of just survive. But the longer I stayed, the more complicated things got. And I had no idea how much it was going to cost me. I knew I wasn't leaving Thailand anytime soon. I wasn't partying every night or doing anything wild. I'd spend my mornings walking to a little coffee stall near my hotel, chatting with the lady who ran it, watching the scooters go by, just soaking everything in. It was the first time in my adult life that I didn't feel like I was running behind schedule, but then I looked at my passport. I'd entered the country on a tourist visa exemption, and I was running out of time. I had just a few days left before I'd need to either leave or figure out how to stay longer. I started asking around, and every expat I talked to had the same solution: a visa run and extensions. Back then, things were a lot easier. Nobody really worried too much about the rules. You just crossed into another country, got your passport stamped, came back, and got a fresh 30 days. Some guys had been doing it for years, so I booked myself on one of those minivans for a visa run. What I didn't know was how terrifying Thai drivers could be when they're in a hurry. The guy behind the wheel drove like we were being chased by the police, swerving between trucks, blasting past cars on blind curves. Half the ride, I was just gripping the seat and staring out the window, trying not to think about dying in a van full of strangers. The border crossing itself was a mess, but the whole process was fairly simple. I knew I wanted to find a place I could actually settle into, somewhere that felt like mine. And for reasons I still don't fully understand, I booked a train to Chiang Mai the very next morning. The morning after I got back from the border run, I woke up before sunrise and couldn't go back to sleep. Bangkok was buzzing already. The street below my hotel was waking up, vendors dragging carts, motorbikes rattling past, the smell of soup broth in the air. It was alive, yeah, but something in me was shifting. I didn't want noise. I wanted calm, so I packed up my bag, grabbed a ticket at the station, and hopped on the sleeper train to Chiang Mai. That ride changed everything. 12 hours of watching the country roll by. Lush hills, rice paddies, little kids waving at the train. It was slow, peaceful, and quiet. A complete opposite of the chaos I'd just left behind. By the time we rolled into Chiang Mai the next morning, I already knew I was going to stay longer than planned. The air felt different there, cooler, softer, the streets were slower, more thoughtful, there weren't as many neon signs, instead there were old temples tucked behind trees, and locals riding scooters with baskets full of vegetables instead of LED drinks menus. I found a little guest house tucked down a quiet, so I just outside the old city walls. It wasn't fancy, just a fan room, cold shower, no TV, but it felt right. I dropped my bags and went for a walk. I wandered through temples, sat in a park near the moat, watching couples feed the fish, drank coffee on a wooden deck overlooking a little canal. Everything was calm. It was the kind of calm that doesn't make you bored, it makes you breathe. By sunset, I found myself back near the East Gate. There were a few bars scattered around there, not the party kind, more the slow music, dim light, expat reading a novel kind. I walked past one and heard a soft guitar cover of an old Eagles song. That was enough to pull me in. It was a quiet place, maybe 5 or 6 customers. I sat at the bar, ordered a beer, and that's when I first saw her. Her name was Benny. She was working behind the bar, wiping glasses, laughing at something one of the other staff said. She looked over at me, smiled, not the kind of smile that tries to sell you something, just genuine, relaxed. She didn't come straight over to ask what I wanted. She let me sit for a bit. Eventually she came over, took my order, and asked where I was from. Her English wasn't perfect, but it was more than enough. We talked about the weather, about the train, about how she liked Chiang Mai more than Bangkok, because it was quiet, but not boring. I told her I'd just arrived that morning. She laughed and said, "Then you lucky, you meet me already." We both laughed. I wasn't looking for anything. Honestly, I just liked talking to her. It was easy, and after all the noise and rush of everything else, easy felt rare. When I left that night, she waved at me from behind the bar and said, "You come again, okay?" And just like that, I knew I would. I went back the next night, and the night after that. At first it was just conversation. I'd show up around 7, sit at the same spot near the end of the bar, and Benny would bring me a beer without me asking. She'd usually be busy, moving between tables or restocking bottles, but she'd always make time to stop by and talk. Every night, I'd learn something new about her. She was from Lamphan, just a short drive south of Chiang Mai, grew up in a small wooden house with her parents and younger brother. She told me she moved to Chiang Mai for work because she didn't want to be stuck in a village forever. She wanted something better. Not rich, but stable. I asked her what her dream was, and without even thinking, she said, "I want a little cafe, like 3 tables. Just me and some good coffee." Then she laughed and said, "Maybe in another life." She never asked for anything. No drink requests. No talk of hard times or problems. In fact, she made fun of girls who asked too much too fast. That's what got me. She wasn't trying to sell me anything. She just seemed kind, real, soft in a way that made me let my guard down without even realizing I was doing it. One night, I asked her if she wanted to go for dinner after her shift. She said no. Not "I'm busy" or "maybe another time." Just no. But she smiled when she said it, and something about the way she looked at me made me want to come back even more. So I did. After about a week, she finally said yes to dinner. We went to a small noodle shop around the corner. She ordered for both of us in Thai, and I remember watching her talk to the old lady running the place, her hands moving fast, her eyes lighting up. She looked at home. We sat there eating and laughing, and I started to feel something I hadn't felt in years, like maybe I wasn't drifting anymore. Like maybe I had landed somewhere. Benny told me that night that she didn't usually go out with customers, that most men were same, come in, say sweet words, disappear after a week. I told her I wasn't like that. And at the time, I believed it. I started spending more time with her outside the bar, mornings at the market, walks through the temples. She took me to a tiny food stall near her apartment, and introduced me to her favorite breakfast, jok with an egg. We'd sit there under a noisy fan, eating rice porridge, watching the scooters buzz by, and for a while, I felt like I belonged. Looking back now, it's hard to say when the line between company and commitment got crossed. It wasn't one big moment, it was 100 little ones. A smile here, a hand on my arm there, a late-night message saying, "You make me feel safe." That was the one that really got me. I didn't see the warning signs, because there weren't any. Not yet. No sudden requests. No sob stories. No drama. Just Benny. Sweet, simple, and quietly slipping into every corner of my life. and I let her in. It didn't feel like I was being used. Not at first. It started small. Benny's phone stopped working, the screen was cracked and the speaker barely worked. I offered to help her get a new one. She said no at first, said it was too much, but I insisted. I didn't think anything of it. It was just a phone, and we were spending so much time together that it made sense, right? Then a few days later, she mentioned her rent was late. She said it casually, like she didn't want to bring it up. Said her boss at the bar hadn't paid her in full the last 2 weeks, and she was short. I asked how much, and she hesitated before saying it. 4,000 baht, that's about $120. Not a big deal to me. I gave it to her without blinking. She cried when I handed her the envelope, hugged me tight, and said no one had ever helped her without wanting something in return. I told her I wasn't trying to get anything. I just cared about her. And I did, or at least I thought I did. After that, things moved a little faster. I helped her get a scooter. She said it would make life easier, especially getting to work when it rained. We picked it out together. Nothing fancy, just something basic, second-hand, cost me about 38,000 baht. Again, she cried. And again, I felt good. I wasn't showing off. I wasn't trying to buy her. I told myself this was what people do when they care about someone. They make life easier for them. She started introducing me to some of her friends. They worked in shops, salons, small cafes. One of them even joked, "Benny, you get lucky. Farang take care of you good." I laughed it off, but something about the way she said it stuck with me. I started thinking bigger. Maybe I could help her open that cafe she always talked about. I even started looking at little corner spots with shutter doors, wondering how much rent would be, what the startup costs were. I hadn't done anything yet, but the idea was there, growing. I'd stopped being a tourist. I was starting to picture a life, a routine, a rhythm. But routines come with responsibility, and I was carrying both sides of this one. She never offered to pay for a thing. I didn't expect her to, not really. But I did start to notice that the more I gave, the more I was expected to give. Not directly. She never said, "You owe me." But it was in the way she'd look away if I said I was tired, or how her messages changed tone if I didn't send her money right away. Soft disapproval, quiet disappointment. It was subtle, gentle, but it was there, and I ignored it, because by then, I'd convinced myself this was love. And love, I told myself, isn't transactional. Looking back now, maybe it wasn't love. Maybe it was just me trying to build something real with someone who was never building with me at all. It didn't feel like I was being used. Not at first. It started small. Benny's phone stopped working. The screen was cracked and the speaker barely worked. I offered to help her get a new one. She said no at first, said it was too much, but I insisted. I didn't think anything of it. It was just a phone, and we were spending so much time together that it made sense, right? Then a few days later, she mentioned her rent was late. She said it casually, like she didn't want to bring it up. Said her boss at the bar hadn't paid her in full the last 2 weeks, and she was short. I asked how much, and she hesitated before saying it. 4,000 baht, that's about $120. Not a big deal to me. I gave it to her without blinking. She cried when I handed her the envelope, hugged me tight, and said no one had ever helped her without wanting something in return. I told her I wasn't trying to get anything. I just cared about her. And I did. Or at least I thought I did. After that, things moved a little faster. I helped her get a scooter. She said it would make life easier, especially getting to work when it rained. We picked it out together. Nothing fancy, just something basic, second-hand. Cost me about 38,000 baht. Again, she cried. And again, I felt good. I wasn't showing off. I wasn't trying to buy her. I told myself this was what people do when they care about someone. They make life easier for them. She started introducing me to some of her friends. They worked in shops, salons, small cafes. One of them even joked, "Benny, you get lucky. Farang take care of you good." I laughed it off, but something about the way she said it stuck with me. I started thinking bigger. Maybe I could help her open that cafe she always talked about. I even started looking at little corner spots with shutter doors, wondering how much rent would be, what the startup costs were. I hadn't done anything yet, but the idea was there, growing. I'd stopped being a tourist. I was starting to picture a life, a routine, a rhythm. But routines come with responsibility, and I was carrying both sides of this one. She never offered to pay for a thing. I didn't expect her to, not really. But I did start to notice that the more I gave, the more I was expected to give. Not directly. She never said, "You owe me," but it was in the way she'd look away if I said I was tired, or how her messages changed tone if I didn't send her money right away. Soft disapproval, quiet disappointment. It was subtle, gentle, but it was there, and I ignored it, because by then, I'd convinced myself this was love. And love, I told myself, isn't transactional. Looking back now, maybe it wasn't love. Maybe it was just me trying to build something real with someone who was never building with me at all. After the temple ceremony, we took a few photos in front of a family's house. Benny wore a soft gold dress with little flower pins in her hair. I was in a plain white shirt and dark pants. No rings, no vows, just smiles, incense, and envelopes. Everyone seemed happy. Her father shook my hand and said, "Good man." That was one of the only English phrases he used the entire day. We took the bus back to Chiang Mai the next morning. Benny rested her head on my shoulder and said, "Now we are same husband and wife." I smiled, but something about the word same felt loose. Like maybe we were only married in theory, in appearance. Like playing house with real money. We moved into a small rental apartment near the outer edge of the city. It was nothing special, but it was ours. Or at least I thought it was. She decorated it, picked out new sheets, a rice cooker, a few plants. Her energy made it feel like home. I was glad to be out of guest houses done with check-in desks and noisy fans. We started settling into a routine. Mornings at the market, afternoons walking through quiet neighborhoods, evenings at small food stalls or on the balcony drinking tea. I'd never felt that kind of quiet stability before. It was addicting. Her family started visiting more often. At first, it was nice. I liked seeing them. I liked the way her mom would make soup in the kitchen and Benny would tease her dad for eating too fast. It felt like I was really becoming part of something. But then the hints started. One night, her mother looked around our small apartment and said, "No good for married couple. You need house." Benny translated it gently, said it like a joke, but her eyes were serious. I laughed it off at first. We'd only just moved in. Why rush? But they kept bringing it up. Every time they visited, there'd be a new comment. Rent is waste. House better for baby. Other foreigners buy house for wife. I started feeling boxed in. I didn't want to buy anything yet. I barely understood the property laws in Thailand, and I knew I couldn't legally own land in my name. Everything would have to be under Benny's. But every time I hesitated, Benny pulled back emotionally. Not in big dramatic ways. Just small things, less affectionate, quieter. Sometimes she'd stay out late visiting friends and not answer her phone. I started feeling like I was being tested, like the stability we had was conditional. Conditional on me doing the next thing, buying the next piece, proving myself again and again. I tried to talk to her about it, asked if she was happy. She said, "Yes, but we need future. Not just now." That word future sounded nice, but it also started to feel like a threat. Still, I couldn't imagine losing her. I told myself we'd get past this, that things would settle once we found our rhythm again. I didn't know yet that the rhythm was already being set, just not by me. After a month of living in the apartment, I finally gave in. I told myself it made sense. Buying a place would save us money in the long run. We'd have something to build on, something permanent, something real. We started looking at townhouses. Benny did most of the talking. She knew the areas, the agents, the shortcuts. I just stood beside her, trying to keep up with the conversations in Thai and watching price tags slide higher than I expected. I had told her, and her family, that my budget was limited. I had enough savings to get by, but I wasn't some millionaire expat. I was careful. I had plans, but those plans started bending. We found a place just outside the city center, 3 floors, narrow but decent. I imagined us fixing it up, maybe renting out the bottom floor, maybe turning it into a small shop. It wasn't what I had dreamed of, but I told myself it was good enough. It cost 1.8 million baht, just over $50,000 USD at the time. Every baht came from me. And because foreigners can't own land in Thailand, the house had to be in Benny's name. She signed the papers. I watched her do it. Something about that moment made my stomach turn, but I smiled anyway, told myself not to be paranoid. Told myself, this is trust. We moved in a week later. Her family came to visit almost immediately. They walked through the house like inspectors, nodding, smiling, approving. Her father patted my shoulder and said, "Now you good husband." For a few weeks, it was peaceful again. Benny was happy. She cooked more. She laughed like she used to. We hosted a few of her cousins for dinner. She started planting flowers outside the front gate. It felt like a home. Then the talk about the car started. It was subtle at first. She'd say things like, "So hard to go market far away," or "too hot for motorbike," or "your back hurt, maybe car better." I said no at first. I told her we could manage, that we didn't need anything fancy, but the comments kept coming. Her mother chimed in during one visit, saying, "No car, how you take baby to doctor?" We didn't have a baby. Still, the message was clear. I held out for another month, but every time I said no, Benny would go quiet for a day. She'd sleep on the edge of the bed, back turned, not angry, just distant, like she was waiting for me to catch up to what she already decided. Eventually, I gave in. Again, we bought a used car, not new, but decent. Around 400,000 baht. I didn't even flinch handing over the money. I was too far in by that point. I'd convinced myself this was what people did for love, for family, for a future. But the next few weeks changed everything. That's when Benny started talking about children. She didn't ask if I wanted one. She told me we needed one. "We are married, we have house, car, what we wait for." I told her I wasn't ready. I wanted to enjoy life with her first, maybe travel, maybe start something of our own. I wasn't saying no, I was saying not yet. She didn't like that answer. That night she moved into the spare bedroom. No fight, no yelling, just silence. A door gently closed. I stood in the hallway, staring at the closed door, thinking about the house, the car, the scooter, the money, thinking about how much I'd already given, and realizing, for the first time, that none of it had bought me the one thing I actually wanted. For a while, I thought she'd come around. I figured it was just a cooling off period, a few days to reset, talk things out, get back to normal. But the door to the spare room stayed closed. She'd still cook breakfast, still wash clothes, still sit at the table with me, but it was like living with a polite stranger. Conversations were short, smiles were tight, and at night, I'd hear her quietly locking the bedroom door from the inside. One morning over tea, I finally asked, "Can we talk about this?" She didn't look up, she just said, "I want baby, you don't. So maybe not, same future." That was it. I tried to explain myself. I told her I wasn't against having kids, I just wanted more time. I'd given up my old life, my savings, everything to be with her. I thought that meant something. She didn't argue, she just nodded and said, "I know, but I cannot wait forever." My parents say same. Her family had been visiting more, always bringing something, fruit, fish, old temple charms. But it didn't feel like kindness. It felt like inspection. They spoke mostly in Thai around me, even though I knew they could speak English. When I'd enter the room, conversations would fall quiet, then start again in whispers. The pressure was thick. I remember one afternoon, her mother pointed to my empty coffee cup and said something in Thai. Benny translated. She say, "House good, car good, but still empty, like without a baby, it was all just decoration." Later that night, Benny said if I didn't want a child soon, she didn't think we should stay married. I laughed, thinking she was joking. We'd only been married a few months. We were still figuring things out. Who rushes into a baby that fast? But she wasn't joking. I said, "What about the house, the car, everything we've built?" She said, "You say no baby, so what else is left?" It was like she didn't see me anymore, just a man who was supposed to tick off a list. I started sleeping alone too, on the couch downstairs. I couldn't sleep in our bed while it felt like a negotiation table. I thought about everything I'd done since meeting her. Every baht, every compromise, every decision that I'd made to prove I was serious. And now, because I wasn't ready to have a child immediately, I was being told there was no future. Not let's talk, not let's wait, just then why are we together? I wasn't prepared to be a father, not yet. But I also wasn't ready to lose her. And that's exactly where she wanted me, stuck in between. It wasn't a question anymore. It was an ultimatum. One morning, I woke up, and she was gone. Her shoes were by the door. The fridge was stocked. Her clothes were still hanging in the wardrobe, but Benny wasn't there. I waited until noon, then called her. No answer. I sent her a message. "You okay?" Read. No reply. That night, I cooked dinner alone, kept checking the driveway. No scooter, no car, just silence. She didn't come back the next day either. On the third day, I went to one of her friend's shops to ask if she'd seen her. The friend looked uncomfortable, and just said, "She busy now. Family things." I knew then that something had shifted for good. That night, I walked down to a bar not far from where she used to work, just out of instinct, I guess. And that's when I saw her. She was behind the bar. Same soft smile, same hair, same voice. She was laughing at something one of the customers said. She didn't see me at first, but when she did, her face didn't change. She looked at me like I was just another stranger. I walked up to her. "Benny." She paused, blinked, then said quietly, "I'm working now, that's all." I stood there for a minute, not knowing what to say. Then I turned around and walked out. My ears were ringing, my chest felt hollow. The next day I went back to the house. Still no sign of her. A few more days passed, and then her cousin came by to collect some of her things. No note, no message, just her cousin saying, "She not come back?" I asked. "What about the house? What about the car? What about the hub?" He shrugged. "She say not happy." Just like that. I tried calling her again. She blocked my number. I went to the bar one more time. The owner, a Canadian guy, maybe in his 60s, pulled me aside before I got too close. "She's good at what she does," he said. "You're not the first, and you won't be the last." I couldn't even respond. I just nodded. He gave me a beer on the house and said, "You want to talk about it? I'll be here." But I didn't want to talk. Not then. I just wanted to know if any of it had ever been real. The marriage wasn't legal. The house was in her name. The car too. I had no recourse, no rights, no chance of recovering a single baht. I sat on the porch of that house we picked out together, staring at the flower pots she had planted, and realized something I never thought I'd feel. I was completely alone, in a life I paid for. I sat down one evening and tried to add it all up, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I needed to see it in front of me, on paper, something real to hold on to, while everything else had slipped through my fingers. The scooter, 38,000 baht. The car, 400,000. The house, 1.8 million. Furniture, electronics, dowry, daily living, money I gave her quietly over time, at least another 800,000 baht, over 3 million baht, more than 90,000 US dollars. Gone. It wasn't just money, it was time, it was belief, it was the version of me that thought he'd found something real. Some mornings, I'd wake up and forget she was gone. I'd roll over expecting to see her there, curled up like she used to be, smiling before she even opened her eyes. But then I'd blink, and the room would be still, quiet, cold. I drank too much that month. Not every day, but enough. I stopped going into town, stopped calling the few friends I'd made. I didn't want to talk. What could I even say? I bought a house for a woman who ghosted me. I got married at a temple and never signed a single paper. I gave her everything, and now she acts like I never existed. It was humiliating. I couldn't even get angry. That's what surprised me. I thought I'd rage, shout, blame her, but I didn't. I blamed myself, because deep down I knew I wanted it too badly. I wanted a soft landing. I wanted someone to love me enough to make staying in Thailand feel like a decision instead of a detour. And when Benny smiled at me in that bar on the first night, I let myself believe she could be the one. And maybe, just maybe, she was never really trying to trick me. Maybe she just played a role she'd learned, one that worked, one that had worked before me, and probably worked after me. I don't know what hurt more, losing her, or realizing how badly I needed her to stay. After she left, the house didn't feel like mine. I couldn't bring myself to live there. I found someone to rent it, just to cover the bills. The car sat parked until the tires went soft. I didn't want to drive it. I didn't want to look at it. I drifted around Chiang Mai for a while, tried to get back into the groove, tried to enjoy the city again, but it wasn't the same. Every noodle shop, every temple, every little side street reminded me of her, of what we almost had, or what I thought we had. Eventually, I left. I took what I had left, moved south, and started over. I picked up some online work, kept my head down, and just healed, slowly. And during all those quiet nights in that new town, I kept asking myself the same question, was any of it real? And I still don't have an answer. There were nights I still caught myself imagining it. What if Benny never left? What if we had the baby she wanted? What if we built the cafe she used to talk about? What if the house had stayed a home? I'd picture us sitting on that little balcony, sipping coffee, watching the sunrise hit the hills outside Chiang Mai. Her smiling, our kid riding a tricycle in the alley, her mother cutting fruit in the kitchen. It was a beautiful dream. But it wasn't real. It never was. And I think somewhere deep down, I always knew that, I just didn't want to face it. It's strange how your heart can convince your head to play dumb, Because here's the truth. I didn't fall for Benny. I fell for what she represented. Safety. Warmth. A life that felt full. A reason to stay. She just happened to be the one standing there, when I was most ready to believe in something. But deep down she happened to be pure evil, and maybe she cared, in her own way. But when it came down to it, she had her priorities, and I fell straight into it. No matter how many meals we shared, or how many laughs we had walking through the night markets, we were never on the same road. She just made it look like we were. The thing that still gets me is how quick it all went. In less than a year, I'd met her, moved in, paid a dowry, bought a house, bought a car, and got left behind without a goodbye. Now I live in the Philippines. I've been here a few years. I'm married again, properly this time. Legal papers, real partnership. We have a daughter. She's 8. She laughs like her mom, and makes fun of my accent every chance she gets. And I love this life I have built now. But sometimes, when I'm alone, when the house is quiet, when my wife is asleep, and the kids tucked in, I still think about Benny. Not with longing, not even with anger. Just curiosity. Did she ever think about me? Did any of it mean something to her? I know it's pointless to wonder about such things, but sometimes, I can't help myself, and it all stings a little. I feel like I became the dumbest farang in Thailand, an easy prey, so be warned and follow my advice. If you think this won't happen to you, don't be so sure and protect yourself. I literally thought the same thing, but yet here we are. Never buy land or a house. Definitely don't put it in her name. The safest way to buy property in Thailand is to buy a condo with a freehold license. If only I knew this at the time, it would have saved me a whole lot of worries and money.